Out of the view.
We try, and that's good. Yeah, it's so important. How old are you?
Are 4 and 7.
Yeah, that's just gonna be sorry. I know it is one of the important years to introduce. But you know, some people have that very yes, you know, high priority,
Right.
you know, even she
I just work in we did
yeah, yes.
I'm for yeah, was it?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Just get the other side, then just you know, right back. Just take a seat anywhere you like.
Hasn't been able to, I'm like. And then I said like 3 times, just like, and then everybody around her was like, hey, you did it, I say. So hopefully she'll do it.
I'm not sure that I looked at the places that there are only few things in the past when I'm looking for, but they look like they're ones who. And so I'm not sure, are they?
They're sure can.
Okay, good.
You know, it's scary when someone from our department will come back and say, but I've never, I mean, we told let all that. No. Easy one, right? I mean, so yeah, 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 things are kind of weird, but you know, just put it in and then. Let it, yeah. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Oh, I want to see you. Yeah. Hey, oh, that's why your door was closed. Yeah. No, I was gonna say to you, but for some reason, these those, so these come to we. Because they're no, they're just not. I. Yes, the way we went outside. I was literally teach my food and I was gonna tell you that. And then. Are you in the just
I'm trying to help it. I'm doing no, actually, you're not. That I don't care. Yeah, no, it's okay. I just forgot to then perceive that I was like, hey, yeah, after. You were like, what's that? Oh, so I think we should have, but I
you know what happens to me?
right. You're right. It's cold. It's still doesn't come on. Real. Oh, you're gonna. Remind me your name again. I mean. Who's gonna sit on the side?
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you for being here, Sherry.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to email you, so I can get my little name on the card.
You get your name on the card of your editor.
Okay.
So otherwise.
So you took gas, you're the Abbott, okay.
You're that's why you don't have name.
Yeah.
So it's just. Around.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, and Siraj, we never found your. Oh, you know what, more in addition, that. Came,
Thank you.
yes. All right. So I guess we got one more name card. Things in the next band. Senators for.
Yes, Ron. SANGH. No, they're not. Okay, everyone, let me just say this, we are not gonna start on time. I know that already. Our secretary is absent today with many regrets. So, and Anthony, a member of our executive committee, is going to handle attendance, but he is not here yet. So we, still need to work on the attendance. And I'm pretty sure we don't have quorum yet, but thank you all for being here. I'll say more about it. Talk amongst yourselves.
Give us a topic. What's the topic?
Hi, Christy, can you hear me? If so, could I ask a question?
Yes, who are you again?
It's Daniel Mann from Social Science.
Yes, Dan.
Yeah, Christy, you had said there was something you needed to check with parliamentarian about
Yes.
voting.
I did, and I am gonna talk about that early in the meeting.
Okay, terrific, thanks.
Okay. Hi, Maria.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
You didn't sound happy to see me, Christina.
I am absolutely happy to see you. I'm a little also distracted.
Joking.
Can you tell? Hello, Anthony. Good. I don't want to be. So.
This lunch.
We actually have a sweaty tendency third meeting.
I walked all the way over here.
I just bring that.
I know, I don't get my hair.
We're gonna do the technical thing.
Yeah, I came just for the cookies.
Okay, it's so nice to see you in person. Hello. And New Year.
Here.
Enjoying the cookies at last.
Actually, in fall too. I'm looking for Wednesday. So
Oh,
this may be the next week.
Perfect. Okay, if you have found your name badge, if you have one, make sure it's visible if you are a senator or an alternate senator. We're gonna begin the process of taking attendance. There's name badges over here.
I'll get two if I can.
Last week.
Okay, I have counted all of you at home. I'm looking at you on the screen right now. You only see the side of my face. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Great. Thank you so much. We quorum. Okay, So I am going to call the meeting to order, and I'm going to do a little explaining before I get to the running through the agenda with my apologies to our parliamentarian. We have considered with the hybrid version of meeting that we have now that our resolution allows us to do, we have the parliamentarian Leslie and I have been discussing what it means for voting. The law and our resolution don't say anything about voting. So this is what we're going to do until someone tells us we can't. We can now conduct business because we have in-person quorum. But we are going to now treat all senators and alternates as present, whether they are in person or on Zoom. So that means if you are an alternate, as is Joseph Garcia is a new alternate for adjunct faculty. Thank you for being here. He helped us reach quorum. Siraj is also a new alternate for the Division of IT. You're helping us reach quorum. Thank you very much. I know in Joseph's case, the Senator Daniel Mann, the Senator for adjunct faculty, is present in this way. So Dan will be the voting member. Joseph will be the one who helps us get quorum in person. So for now, that's how we're going to try it. I know Maria is thinking in her head. Hold on, go. Talk to me. This is what we're going to do for this meeting. This doesn't say anything about voting.
It does.
Where? Well,
What you explained was actually right. So that is exactly what's supposed to happen. You need in-person quorum in order to even raise the vote. You need, but the people who are online are able to vote. The question that I think is going to be the fact that we have the alternate in person and the senator online. So that violates the.
so
Okay. And Leslie did a deep dive in Robert's rules, which also doesn't say anything about this, and in some discussion forums for Robert's rules, and concluded that there's no special stipulation on who the voting member of the Senate is in this configuration. So for today, at least, we are going to let, if an alternate is present in person, but the senator is present online, in this Albert, Patricia is online. You are the alternate, letting us reach quorum in person. We'll let Patricia be the voting member. So those of you who are alternates who showed up on this fall to first Senate meeting of 2023, thank you so much. You are helping us be able to conduct business. And feel free to discuss with the senator you represent or you are alternate for your opinion about the vote, but not now, beforehand. So, but we are going to let the remote senator vote if they are present, at least for today until we discuss it more. So
Thank you for explaining that, Christy, and thank you to you and Leslie for doing your deep dive and figuring that out. I appreciate it.
you're welcome, of course. And for you guests who are here with us today, welcome also. One more preface before we approve the agenda is our fearless and hardworking Secretary of Senate is absent today. So, and she knew this would happen. It was unfortunate. Yeah, timing didn't work out. She is not present. She is, and so we have, Anthony is going to take over. Come on in, welcome. Anthony is taking over with attendance. And welcome everyone. We are recording this meeting. And Jill, when she returns, is going to do the minutes from the recording. So, which I don't envy her that challenge. I'll try to help her with the process. So the minutes are going to be taken from the recording. And would you, if you just arrived, would you both tell me who you are? Yeah.
I'm Stefania Dino ASAP.
Very good. Hello.
Annabelle Rivas ASAP. As well.
And are you alternate senators, guests?
Yes.
And they're on the new.
Soon to be, almost to be.
The new election committee.
Yes.
Hooray! Thank you so much, Charis, for recruiting our members and welcome. And I'm glad you get to sit right in front. Okay. So now I'm going to follow the agenda for the meeting. The first item of the agenda is to approve the agenda.
I have one change. It's a small change. You got a second email with additional curriculum items. There was another curriculum meeting of the College-wide Curriculum Committee on January 5th. That is not on the agenda. So when we vote on curriculum, we will be voting on the curriculum consent calendar items from the December 1st meeting and the January 5th meeting. So, and that is the only change to the agenda. So, I'm looking at Leslie to see. So, and do we need a motion, Leslie? For the approval of the agenda? Yep. All right, I need a motion and a second for approving the agenda. Loretta, moves to approve the agenda. Rochelle seconds, all in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. I want to point out, two things. Or I'm going to point out one thing and then inform you of one thing. We are continuing to discuss the efficiency of committee reports. The committees are all still listed on the agenda, but what I want to encourage committee chairs to do is if you have nothing to report, boldly, bravely, don't hesitate to say you have nothing to report. We do not need a report from every committee every month, and you don't need to feel obligated towards that end. If you are in a committee with nothing to report and you are here, some of you I recognize, and you are not a senator, if you have no report, you do not need to attend a Senate meeting. If you have a report, and you are a committee chair but not a senator, it is okay if you come late to the Senate meeting. So I don't think we should put committee reports early in the Senate meeting to make it more efficient for committee chairs, because it's not the business of the Senate. I mean, the business of the Senate should come first, but I do want to make it less time consuming for committee chairs who are not also senators. So if you are a committee chair and have nothing to report and want to leave, feel free. But if you would like to stay, anyone is always welcome. Yes, Liz?
Why don't we have to committee reports by like a 3-sentence report that gets added to the agenda? So like we said, and then it's like essentially like a de facto consent calendar item, unless there was a big issue that a committee needed to present. So like everybody would see like the bullet point, like they're, you know,
Yeah.
whatever, each committee has like 2 or 3 bullet points, or no report. And we can read it, and if we have questions, I don't know, I guess that would be the tricky part, is if somebody wasn't attending and there were questions, we would need to figure out a process for that.
I will make a note of that. We'll continue talking about that. And I welcome any other ideas that you might have on how we can make the committee reports more efficient in the meeting. All right. Welcome, Margaret. Welcome, Evelyn. Margaret, you have a name placard, which is back. Oh. They're over. Yeah, the problem over there is good for space, but it's then everybody has to go all the way across to find theirs. The second thing I want to mention regarding the agenda is I want to point out what is easy to miss, that we are hoping to have time toward the end of the meeting after committee reports for a Senate parliamentarians Robert's Rules refresher about new business and how to handle new business. So I'm pointing that out because that is out of our norm, outside of our usual habit. But we want to, and I'm not quite sure how today's meeting will go. It's a very full agenda, as you may be able to tell. So, but hopefully we'll have time for that, because because bringing new business to the Senate is one of senators' functions, and we need a little more education about that. So that's one of the things that our parliamentarian and vice chair of Senate would like to help us with. Hopefully the timing will work out well enough for that. And I am still in the process of identifying a way on our Senate website to post those PowerPoints that the parliamentarian has done, the Robert's Rules refreshers. I haven't accomplished that yet. So that will hopefully be coming. So next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the November 30th meeting of 2022. Were there any changes to the minutes for the November 30th meeting? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. And we'll all want to pay special attention to the minutes from this meeting, since it's going to be a little more challenging due to the absence of our secretary to make that happen. The next item on the agenda is the vote on the curriculum committee consent calendar items from both December 1st and January 5th.
Can we actually circulate an attendance list just, especially for the guests, because they don't have that. I mean, I've got the senators marked off. I think I got everybody, but especially for the guests. So if somebody can give them an extra piece of paper, can we just circulate, just.
Yeah, so if you are a guest to Senate today, the recording will show those members who are on Zoom. But if you are a guest to Senate, would you make sure to sign this piece of paper and maybe identify yourself and, you know, where you're situated, so that we'll have that for the Senate minute. You'll show up in the minutes that way. Thank you, Anthony. So we need a motion to approve the curriculum consent calendar items, as you saw in my email. Today is the day to approve those so that they can be sent to the Board of Trustees in time for their next meeting to be in the curriculum for the fall semester. So Loretta?
I move to approve the curriculum consent calendar for both December 1st and
January 5th. Great. Second?
Second.
Cindy seconded and Loretta was first. And so we do a roll call vote for this, and that means we're looking to Anthony, who has stepped in to fill Neil's role. Anthony, are you ready for a roll call?
Yeah, so just want to make sure there's, do you only have 2 students right now, one online and one in person? Right? Okay.
Yep.
I do think I have it. Okay. So there
And
we-
let me remind you, especially if you are a new alternate senator, what we're doing is giving the final okay at LaGuardia for the curriculum work that's been done by the college-wide curriculum committee. We prefer that you read it over, but we are not expected to be experts in the curriculum. If an affirmative vote is aye, a negative vote is no. This will sound like attendance, but it's not. So aye or no, you can choose to abstain if you feel unable to affirm the curriculum.
Okay, so Maritza.
Yeah, aye.
Myself, I. Okay, so Daniel. Man.
Aye.
Okay. Liz.
Aye.
Okay. Doug. Aye. Lucy.
Aye.
Charis.
Aye.
Leslie.
Aye.
Jeannie.
Aye.
Patricia. I know you're not gonna see it.
Aye.
Mom.
Aye.
Cindy.
Aye.
Loretta.
Aye.
Teresa is not here, right?
Teresa's not here, her alternate is
Siraj.
here.
Amy Lynn.
Aye.
Louise, right? Denise is not here?
Aye.
Yeah,
Oh.
okay. Okay. Rebecca,
Aye.
Rochelle,
Aye.
Tara, and Suzanne are not here, right?
No, they're neither able to.
Suman,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Sandra.
Aye.
I know I saw it somewhere. Claudette.
Aye.
Margaret,
Aye.
Sabine,
Aye.
Svetlana,
Aye.
okay. And Ariana,
Aye.
and Chairperson Bruns.
Aye.
Okay, pass unanimous.
And I think we've had a few more people just enter the waiting room or enter the Zoom. Thank you very much for being here. Would you, if you're on Zoom, would you make sure to make sure your name is your first name and last name so that we can use this for attendance, the recording of the Zoom. And I'm gonna check the message again. So the question was raised in the chat, what time we think committee reports might occur? I don't. Well, one more word about our agenda today. We have two matters from the Academic Standing Committee to vote on, or at least to discuss and maybe postpone a vote if necessary. And the chair of the Academic Standing Committee is not able to arrive until 4 o'clock. So that will get set at 4 o'clock. We may have some committee reports before then. For sure, probably not until 3:30 would, probably at least 3:30 before we have committee reports. And then Douglas, let me know if there's anything else in chat that needs attention. We've invited Provost Billy Gastick Rosado to attend, and I see her up there. Hello, Billy. Thank you so much for being here. And we've asked her to come to talk about two matters unrelated to each other. One is changes to advising. And the other is the new student, well, I don't know what STIRS stands for, but it's the new student evaluation of teaching instruments. So I'm going to turn it over to Billy to talk about these things, and then we'll have time for questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me to offer these updates. I will begin with advising. So in our effort to improve the coordination, conversation, alignment between the mentoring that faculty offer and the advising that our professional staff advisors offer, there is a proposal in front of PRC that is going to be heard next week regarding the transfer of 3 aspects of advising from student services to academic affairs, and that would be advisement, ASAP, and college discovery. And so with the, I'm optimistic that will be, our rationale will be understood, and then that would be approved. In the event that is approved, the ambition then is to begin the process by which we embed staff advisors in academic departments. This is to achieve, again, the goal of improving the coordination between the academic department and the advisor, but also to establish the academic department as being the connective hub for students, the destination for students. We really want, LaGuardia can feel like an awfully large place where students are referred to lots of different offices, and to the extent to which we can, direct students to their department as a place where they can get multifaceted support and resources. My belief is that students will be better off. And so that's something that would be in the works. There are, my intention is to be able to move this along quickly so that we would begin to see advisors, staff advisors working in departments early in the spring semester. But it may be that I want to make sure that student services has the opportunity to time that transition in a way that is least disruptive, and then and we would go from there. But that is that's the goal. I will share that the working group, the advising working group, our first meeting is on Friday, and the work of that group over the next 3 months is specifically to provide advice to academic affairs in managing that transition. So we want to do a few things. We want to use the time to catalog the questions, the decisions that we ask students to make upon entry. So we're very clear that we have a sense of all those moments where students are have to clear some hurdle. And in doing so, want to then identify, well, what are the supports and who's providing those supports at each juncture? And in doing so, seek to clarify, well, when we say advising, what do we mean? And when we say mentorship, what do we mean? And so that we can look for the places where those can complement each other and where we are leaning on one side more heavily than the other. Another goal of that group is to be very honest and thoughtful about what our limitations are based on current resources. We all know that we don't nearly have enough advisors that we would like, but how do we best utilize the strong team that we have? And so what are what are our ambitions and what are we able to achieve now with the size of that group? So that's the update on advising. Christy, should I go to the student evaluation of teaching or should I pause here for questions?
I think it'd make more sense to pause here for questions.
Yeah.
Liz.
Hi, Billy. Liz Clark from English. How are we going to handle liberal arts and our liberal arts majors for whom there is not an office and a place to go? That seems like an immediate issue. I think this is a great idea and I love the way that you're thinking, but we need to not forget them because they're such a large major and they don't have a hub.
Yeah.
They don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah. Thank you for raising that. I will say that we don't have a good answer yet, but I agree that there needs to be similarly a point of contact for those students. But you know, how do we make students aware of that person and where that person is, you know, physically situated, how they feel a part of that community is, you know, I'll make sure that that doesn't fall through the cracks. So thank you for raising it, Liz.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments about these changes to advising?
Probably having more peer advisors into first year seminar classes. I'm a peer advisor myself, and I think we definitely need more peer advisors into first year seminar classes.
To help support the work of advising in through first year seminars. So peer advisors in first year seminar. Loretta.
Hi, Billy, it's Loretta. Is it on the table that the advising department, student academic advising services, that they're going to be assigned to the individual academic departments? Because here's my concern in our current model. When a student relies on their advisor, and their advisor being a human being is not available all the time, where is the I'm looking for the backups to make sure that students are never without the resource that they need for success.
That's right. Thank you for raising that. You know, that's something that I've been talking to Ramon about in anticipation of this model that, you know, he has stressed to me the real utility of having generalists. And so, you know, that's the balance that we need to strike so that the student has the primary point of contact, but if there's vacation or a leave, that nothing, you know, falls through the cracks. But that's something we have to figure out what those what the secondary point of contact is for each department. And also I wanted to clarify when you said assign, the expectation is that it's going to be a mutual match. So we'll be asking advisors, well, you know, what are you know, they may gravitate towards particular areas they're more familiar with. They have a professional or personal, you know, affinity to certain areas. And so trying to really engage in a dialogue across the academic departments and advisors, so we can, it's something that it's a choice on both sides.
And just one little other issue, the current models all began during the student's first semester at the college. Is this new advising arrangement going to begin at the point of entry to the college? Or is it still first semester?
Point of entry. So when you're a new student, that's how you get integrated into this model.
Great. That is a huge difference in our current.
Okay, there's 2 questions online and 1 more in the room. Patricia, and Daniel Mann also wants to ask a question. Dan, why don't you go first and then we'll hear from Patricia.
Hi, everybody. Billy, thanks very much for being here and for your presentation. I just wanted to ask about the kind of practical application of this kind of new advising model. When you say the advisors are going to be kind of situated in the department, do you mean that physically or metaphorically? And if physically, how are we going to deal with, practical issues? Like, are they going to have office hours in the department? How are we going to deal with office space when, I can only speak for social science, but we've got, 50 odd adjunct faculty, myself included, crammed into one room. So I'm just curious how this is going to actually work out.
The preference is that advisors will be physically part of the department. The chairs are now, I've asked the chairs to do a space assessment where to tell me sort of how ready are you to invite to welcome an advisor today, or what are the kinds of shifts that need to occur. I have heard, in some places it's easier than others. I've heard the scarcity of space is an obstacle, but I don't want that to impede the work that we do. My primary goal in this is obviously to make this change to the benefit of students, but I also want to make sure that our advisors have have what they need in a comfortable, welcoming space. And so if their physical relocation has to be a bit delayed for that to happen, so be it. But where we can move advisors, we're going to do that right away.
Great, thank you, Billy. Before we hear from Patricia and then Evelyn, let me just acknowledge to everyone that we have gone a year with no adjunct senator, and I want to thank Dan Mann and Joseph Garcia, both for volunteering. So not only do we have an adjunct senator representing adjunct faculty, but we also have an alternate senator representing adjunct faculty. So thank you all for your for volunteering to stand in those positions. They're very obviously, you can see how needed they are. They're a perspective that the Senate needs to hear. So Patricia.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Billy. Thank you. Just a quick question. We love that model. We used to have advisors that were attached to the humanities department, and we loved it. We just thought they were knowledgeable in certain areas that could help our students because they were focused on some disciplines. So we love that model. When you say embedded in the department, do they belong to somewhere else also, or are they definitely affiliated in the department? And I'm thinking about the revision of the P&B articles and all those. Where are those? What does it mean for their employment? Are they employed by another office in academic affairs, or are they going to be kind of part of the department itself in terms of structure?
Understood. So they will be, physically seated with the department, but their supervisor will remain the supervisor that they've had now. So, depending on if it's, ASAP or college discovery or advisement, that person is a different person, but that will be their primary manager and supervisor. But the work that is performed on a daily basis is done in collaboration and partnership with the academic department. So this is not a line that's going to get formally added to the department. It's going to be retained as a distinctive advising group, but it'll be a one-to-one assignment. So say someone who is assigned to humanities will not also be working with social sciences. That's, and so that's so at least that provides advisors with an opportunity to have a bounded set of programs that they have to be knowledgeable about, as opposed to, the full catalog.
Great. Evelyn.
My question sort of piggybacks on what Loretta was referring to. I'd like to know has been any thought about our evening students, and then thinking about the second question that was asked about the space. If they're physically in these offices, again, has there been thought about our evening students, our weekend students? That has always been a thing of mine with being an adjunct. It seems like a lot of services for our students in the evening, the weekends are just not available.
I'm glad you raised that, because there's, something that is on the table that I, need more time to talk this out with advisors once the, you know, the shift has been formalized, is think if we can time shift some virtual availability of advisors. You know, I don't want to go so far to say that, you know, to expect maybe you know, always an evening in person or a weekend in person presence, but at least an availability so that there are drop-in hours or, you know, some way for students who are here in the evenings or on the weekends to reach someone. So that's definitely something on the table, but it seemed inappropriate to start to talk about someone's, you know, work hours when, you know, I'm not, you know, that's not right in my portfolio yet, but I think that's something that we can do. And it sounds like, based on early conversations I've had, there's an openness on the part of advisors to do that, to not necessarily, you know, work your 9 to 5, but to have some flexibility in a schedule to reach students.
Great, thank you. I'm going to call questions there because Billy has to leave at 3. And we also need to hear about the student evaluation instrument. So if you have additional questions, if we have time after the next segment, we'll allow for those, or send them to me and I'll make sure that we get them heard. And that we can add an addendum to the minutes, or so that they're recorded as part of the minutes. So hold on to your questions. Tell us about the student evaluation instrument.
Perfect. Thank you, Christy. So very happy to share that after, I believe it's been a few years since the faculty committee or working group came together to establish the new student evaluation of teaching, that the spring semester will be the first semester in which those new questions are going to be administered to students. We're also using a new delivery system, Qualtrics, to administer that survey. This is we, you know, acknowledge this is a pilot semester in that I have spoken with the chairs, and we are all in agreement that the data, the results from this evaluation in the spring semester are, you know, we want everyone to, we want participation to be consistent with, you know, how that is structured in past semesters, but it is up to the faculty member. It's optional for any given faculty member to use the data coming from this spring administration in any kind of, you know, review portfolio for, you know, promotion or tenure. And so that's, you know, it's a good opportunity for us to, you know, focus on making sure that faculty and students have the information so that, you know, a reminder in some cases of this is what the instrument is going to look like, and for students to try to make the case or try to provide some education concerning why this matters so much and why we take these evaluations seriously. There are opportunities for students to provide qualitative feedback. You know, there are different questions, I think much improved questions on the version that's going to be rolled out in the spring, and we want to hear from students. Our response rates are awfully low. I've heard from faculty teaching online courses that those are particularly worrisome. We're not hearing from enough students. So there's going to be a bit of an awareness campaign that we kick off. I have spoken with the chairs and asked them to reserve some time in a spring faculty meeting, preferably in March, but some of them have offered dates in April, where there will be someone, you know, preferably from that core group that had been working on these instruments, but perhaps, you know, someone from the provost's office, if someone on that committee is not available, to answer any questions, to remind faculty of the instrument. We can share that out, just so that, you know, again, it's been a while since these conversations initially happened, and we want to make sure that people feel prepared for the rollout.
All right, are there questions about this, Loretta?
Hi, I'm sharing a question that I've been asked frequently by students over the years. How do students access any of this data? The current answer has been rate my professor. And that is insufficient. I have been, this is my 5th college of employment in addition to one I attended. And information used to be even put in the library where students could flip through. There was online versions, but to date, I've been at LaGuardia since 95. This information has never been shared with students. And Rate My Professor is in my opinion, a faulty instrument for them to be using. But it would be nice if maybe phase 2, if it's not part of phase 1, is how are students accessing this information?
That's interesting. I know that there are varied practices. I'm not sure about, I'm not sure within CUNY, but across colleges, some of them make some sort of scrubbed version of that available publicly. Others hold it, don't consider that for distribution. This is a conversation, Christy, I'd want to have, if this is something that's of interest, it's a complicated question you're asking, Loretta. It's a good one, but something that we should, I definitely have not, I don't have a very, a point of view on it. I think there are pros and cons. I'd want to talk more, hear from faculty here, faculty council, the Senate. This should be, you're right, not obviously not in phase 1, but a conversation we should have.
Sounds good. Message heard. We'll make a note of it, Rochelle, for faculty council, and the committee of faculty should also take note of this as a potential matter. Obviously complicated issue, but.
And the committee of students.
And the committee of students, yes. Thank you, Yana, for being here. And Ariana already lent her support to the idea through the chat on Zoom. Are there other questions? Yeah, Marta, and then Dan.
Yeah, hi. So I have one quick question. So initially the plan was to have the Sears, but also offer some kind of 15 minutes, 20-minute training to faculty and students, specifically for students, to make students aware about the biases that they have towards the professor, so they can have some kind of, mind switch and be open how they're grading the faculty. Is that training still on a table or is not being pursued?
It absolutely is. This core committee of faculty have some draft materials that my understanding is that they received feedback on those materials and they're now in the process of updating it. The plan is to do a college-wide have a college-wide conversation training that is recorded and then made available to faculty, and then have a shorter version that is tailored to students to raise the bias issue and to again educate students about why they're being asked these questions about their faculty members.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Dan.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to make 2 points. So one, to whoever who spoke before Marta, I apologize. I didn't quite catch who that was. The perils of excuse me, Zoom meetings. I'm just going to slightly change hats now and save. And I know we've got Laura here, so I'm sure she could talk about that in more detail. But I have major concerns from a union perspective and a practical perspective about publicizing the data from student evaluations of faculty, and I think that might be several different types of contract violation, not to mention various types of employment confidentiality. The second thing that I wanted to mention is that I agree with what Marta said at times, and I've had students tell me this to my face at times. If a student gets pissed off about a grade or something, it's like, oh well, I'm just going to go write him a shit review. And I think students they don't really see the value in it. And I've noticed, and I mean, some other colleges I've taught at, it's really used as something that's held over faculty and more specifically adjunct faculty. And it's one of the many ways that I'm not talking about LaGuardia because I've not had that experience, but it's one of the ways that there is very much this 2-tier system. And in my experience, student evaluations only tend to reinforce that. However, with that being said, if we can do some kind of training so that students actually can take it seriously and not just use it as a means of retaliation, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I know, and I just want to acknowledge that there are, you know, there's a lot of research about student evaluations of teaching and bias and concerns, but I do, I am very pleased with the version that is going to be rolled out in the spring. I think the fact that faculty committee did an excellent job, and so I'm hopeful that it's just it is more helpful kind of feedback that faculty are receiving, but of course it's, you know, it always, and instruments like that have the potential of being misused, and I just want to just acknowledge that.
Thank you, and I appreciate you acknowledging that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the committees come up with.
Very good.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Billy. We have one more question, and I know you need to go, Billy. Last question, Rebecca.
Food for thought. Could we have a 2-minute or less video that's a very brief training or description of the instrument and what it's for students that they watch before they access the tool or the instrument? I don't know, just food for thought.
No, that's a great idea.
That's a great idea, but I don't want it to be so brief that it.
That it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't
Accomplish the purpose.
reinforce the significance of it. If that makes any sense.
So all that is, I think, in discussion, but progress is being made, and it will be a test semester this spring of this new instrument. So, Billy, I know you need to go. I want, on behalf of the Senate, thank you so much for being part of our meeting today and for this information. If you have additional questions, send them my way. I'm sure Billy is receptive to your emails directly as well, and we'll continue these discussions. So thank you for being here, Billy.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
All right, next on the agenda, the wonderful issue of children on campus and the new proposed policy been worked on by Martha Clark of HR, but it is being presented by the co-chairs of the Campus Affairs Committee, Anthony and Evelyn. So take it away. Let me just give one word of context here. Today's purpose is for you to gain an understanding of the proposed policy. We will not vote on it today. We will discuss it today. They'll take questions, and then your task is to make sure your constituents hear about this, see it. You can collect feedback from them, bring it back to Senate at our February 8th meeting, and our plan is to vote on the policy at our February 8th meeting. At least that's the plan for now. So, and I can report, I believe, I have not checked to confirm, but I believe that there is now a correct Senate roster with the new senators on the Senate website that has just been prepared so that the college knows who you are and you can check there, confirm who your constituents are. If you are an at-large senator, your constituents, it's a much more complicated question. But wherever you are, report back about this policy. So I'm going to turn it over to Evan and Anthony.
So I'll start. We had a meeting on January 4th. This was our second time really talking about policy, really third time. But we really got into it. Every time we've made some changes, Marta was able to listen to our feedback and come back with changes. So you all received in the email the current draft, which again has gone through a few changes, which I want to thank Marta for listening to us on the feedback. We did approve it almost unanimously. There was only one abstention. So it was a very long discussion. There was a lot of back and forth and a lot of questions, which again, more changes were incorporated. So it was a very lively discussion. Look it over, obviously Marta will talk more about it in depth, but look it over. And if you have other questions, I'm sure, between now and next month, like Christy said, talk to your constituency and hopefully we will be able to discuss it more in depth next month.
I just want to add, we did spend a lot of time going back and forth, hearing from everyone and trying to incorporate all of the different feedback that we were receiving. And I think we, I want to say we invited additional people and we invited, the college community to be able to really put forward something that addressed everybody's concern. So if you have questions, Martha's here and Martha can address some of those questions as well. In terms of like the form, which was one of the big topics that we discussed, we can go into more detail if you guys at some point want to do that. But we try to make this as easy as possible, not only to implement, but to understand.
Draft of the form to be filled out yet?
Well, it's online.
Could you say it
Yes.
louder, Rebecca?
A draft of the form that
I
we're
mean,
talking about.
so I can pull up the online canvas form if you guys are interested in looking at that. But this is the form more or less that was used during COVID. A lot of people used it at that time. And we're just going to take that form and reformat it to address the questions that were being asked. So that was already addressed with Vidania's group, our IT. And, you know, as we're bringing that along, and we'll, you know, if
Yeah,
you
we're
guys
still
wanna
waiting on
look,
final
right, if
form.
you want
Once
to
we
look
get
at that.
Send it out to the senators.
Right, sounds good.
There was a question in the chat, and Martha, you might be best able to answer this. Does this policy take into consideration the insurance problem, the liability and insurance?
Yes, and that has been discussed at length. And thankfully I have Maria Cook here and also Sabine, as our legal counsel. We have, again, explained why the guidelines really are important to have as a protection, not just for the visiting minor, but also for the college, and to mitigate any unforeseeable risks during any type of visit, if the child should so happen to get injured or something else, God forbid, would happen while that child is on our campus. And absent guiding principles, you know, it's a sort of catch as catch can when a child is here. They could spend the night if they wanted to, you know? Because we did not have anything written and substantiated as far as what is the college's, I guess, management philosophy of children being on campus. So I hope that you all will take some time, read through this, and know that it has gone through various iterations to its current draft right now, which we did agree upon during the Committee on Campus Affairs. So I thank everyone that also participated in the discussions, and know that I heard you loud and clear. And I think this very last draft pretty much, captured all of the suggestions that were made.
Great, thank you, Martha. Patricia has a question.
Yeah, let me just, sorry. Just one quick question. I mean, I understand that a lot of people were involved in this. What is the reasoning for the 45 minutes as opposed to 50 minutes or the 3 hours? Where do these numbers come from to make it 45 minutes, 3 hours?
Well, so again, the guidelines really are, I would say, centered around or focused on employees, right? And so we wanted to ensure that we have some definitive durations listed here. And prior to the 45 minutes, it was actually 30 minutes as the minimum, after COVID, to comply with CUNY's guidelines on visitation during COVID. So we increased that to 45 minutes.
Just for a little more flexibility.
Correct.
Does that address your question, Patricia?
Yes and no, but it's probably.
But it is 3 hours.
Well, I just want to state that a brief visit is just that, a brief visit. A brief visit shouldn't be 4 hours. So we had to define what is a brief visit. And that's why that 45 minutes was placed there, Patricia.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a question in the chat. All right, hold on just a minute. Leslie has responded to the question from Dan. The question of what is the basis for 45 minutes or 3 hours? It sounds to me like there's not an existing, there's not a basis. It's just we have to come up with something to define brief and something to define what's reasonable. So that would be my sense.
And I think that's reasonable for those who are working and are bringing their children onto campus to do business, let's say, for whatever reason. We had to identify what constitutes a brief visit. And in the latest update, we specified as of the last meeting and the suggestion where it says the brief visit is specifically for employees. Okay, so we did identify that brief visit definition as far as who does that apply to?
And then student guidelines are different than the employee
That is
guidelines
correct.
and visitor guidelines.
Mhm.
Dan has a question, and again, Dan, this is for questions and clarifications. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, so I just want to clarify something for faculty and students. So just for context, and I have him here because I want to prove a point. I've got my middle nephew who's been sat next to me here for the past 15 minutes. And the reason that, and so he's been here, but the other thing is that you see him right here. And I've got him here because I want to make a point. I appreciate this is for clarification, but what I want to clarify is that children, you can't separate children from the university, because just like I'm on a Zoom meeting here at home, unfortunately, when you have kids, and I don't have kids, but when you've got kids, you can't really just divorce them from yourself. And I can't tell you the number of times I've had students say to me, you know, hey, Professor Mann, my kid is sat out in the hallway. This was at a different CUNY campus. And I'm just like, well, what the hell are they out there for? Have them come in. And the
Dan,
reason that I can't, no,
Just a moment. First, we do, because we are in a mandatory public meeting, please keep your language a little cleaner, just because everyone can't choose to be here or not. And second, although, I mean, outside of a formal meeting, whatever, doesn't matter, but here, and the other thing is, you're asking for clarification?
yes, which I was about to, but I was interrupted.
Go ahead. Yeah.
My
go ahead.
clarification is, if faculty, because it says here, I'm looking at section 1.02B. It says here, a child should not be left unattended when the parent or guardian is attending class or conducting any other business on or social function on campus. Line of sight supervision. This may sound like a small thing, but does, I could just see some overzealous people, saying, oh, well, they can't go to the bathroom. You can't go to the bathroom. Stuff like that. And I do feel like, this is getting a little out of control here. It's like, we need to make this that explicit? That's just my sense.
Anthony and Evelyn, let me ask you as co-chairs of the committee to respond to that question if you have a.
Yes, so at that point, we would ask, and are you referring to a student or are you referring to an employee? Because
all of the above, but particularly students.
So if you're referring to a student, then the parent should walk with that child to the bathroom. Yes, that's what we're saying in this policy. If you're referring to an employee, the employee has, I think it was 3 hours or something like that, right? Yeah, again, you should be walking with your child to the bathroom.
So the child should not be left unaccompanied at all.
Yeah, I mean, that did come up in the committee, and even to the fact that if you're an employee and you're going to the bathroom with your child, that's fine. If you're asking another employee to watch your child while you go to the bathroom, that could be an inconvenience to that employee. So we're saying, yes, you should have that child with you when you go to the bathroom.
And Patricia's comment in the chat is to think of it like the airport, where you would not leave your child
That is correct.
alone to go to the bathroom.
And
Thank you.
to add to that, that was actually the example that was given while we were discussing that.
Yeah.
Someone said, even for a teenager. So Laura, I would say if we're going to uniformly apply, absolutely. It's a little, usually no one's going to question the teenager one, so I really don't see a scenario where it becomes an issue with a teenager. It really would become an issue if it's a younger child, still a minor, but a younger child, and the staff in the office do not want to be left responsible for that person's child. So we should evenly enforce it.
In addition to that, we were asked from departments, one of the examples that was brought up, one of the issues that was brought up was the pool, where parents drop off the kids at the entrance. To please advise the parents or speak to the degree we're gonna put signs that the parents must be walked into, because you don't know what can happen in the course of the child going into to the pool.
So rather than dropping off a child at the entrance of the building to go to the pool, actually.
Right.
yes, inside. All right, so this is the standard that is being proposed in this policy. Rebecca?
After being at the other committee meeting where I was discussing this before, I'll say that. I looked at this language again and I think there might be times where staff volunteer or say, hey, I'll watch your child while you go to the bathroom or something. I think the language here about must not ever leave with a colleague, I don't know, is there a way we can build in if someone says they will watch your child?
No, because we should not be doing that. I mean, that is, I would just say that's prohibited. I mean, it could happen. We can't control that. But as far as policy guidelines and what is written, we should not be placing anything like that in a policy or.
In a written policy.
And
Correct.
Rebecca, if you recall, that was something we discussed at the meeting, right? This is the policy, this is the written law of the college. Now, is it always applied and always practiced? We can all attest that that's not the case.
But I'm concerned that someone will be unduly punished for doing something that seems very, very intuitive, like saying, I have to go to the bathroom. Hold on a second, not everyone reads all the policies. I wouldn't want to see undue punishment over something like that.
Well, faculty have, I just want to make this clear. Faculty members who are facilitating, instructing a class, you have the autonomy to manage your class accordingly, right? This policy does not or should not be deemed as punitive in how you manage your classroom. And so with that, I think.
Loretta, then Liz.
It was brought to my attention, and I agree, that when people ask other employees to do favors for them, especially in this situation, it puts undue stress on the employee, especially if they are beneath you in the supervisory level. And even though it's innocent, this is my colleague, it's not. If you ask, if a faculty member or a staff member ever asks a college office assistant or a college assistant to do something for them, you are above them. If you are in a supervisory role for them, they feel bound to agree whether or not it is something that they are willing to do or comfortable with. And I think that's why we need this, to protect them. A person's gonna volunteer, that's a conversation you're having with them, but the policy should say no. Right.
Liz and then Sabine.
Yeah, but if you're gonna go by the language, that is not the language. The language here is an absolute. And the language here does not allow for deviation. I am the godparent of 3 different children in my department. And if their parent wants to go to the bathroom and leave them with me, I am also responsible for that child if the parent dies, because I am the godparent.
Do you know?
Right? How do I know? Because there are arrangements, right? So like, I think I should be allowed, if my colleague, for whom I am also the godparent of their child, wants to go to the bathroom, a child who I see outside of the campus for 3 minutes, I think I should be allowed to do that. But this language does not allow for that. This language does not, if we're gonna talk about, I'm sorry, but if we're gonna talk about a policy that applies to everybody, then you don't have a policy that then, oh, well, maybe we're not gonna enforce it in some situations, because then who gets to decide when it's enforced and when it's not?
Sorry.
Liz,
No, I think,
then.
were you going to respond, or you had another point?
Respond to.
Okay.
So the alternate side to what Loretta's saying, which mimics some of we're coming up with variables here, which these variables have gone, we're having to make a lot of leaps to get to that point. But the other side of it is, if you're the godparent of a faculty member or someone who is of the same status or a colleague of yours, that's a choice that you've made. I don't think you're going to report that, or the child's mother is going to report that, but if this is something that's happening, if the variables that Loretta gives happens often with that college assistant, where you have a faculty member that's bringing their child and it's a pattern, and the faculty assistant is feeling burdened, that undue stress, that person now has some leeway to make a report. And also policies, while they're in place, policies and procedures are in place. I understand that you want there to be some flexible language, but there are certain policies that may need some must and shalls, those rules to insulate risk here. There are other policies that are a bit more flexible, but certain policies, and this is one in particular, we do need some of that language here to insulate us from some risks because of the past issues that have come up, like possible injury, getting a child's hand caught in the door, or falling off of the second floor balcony.
Someone saying that they don't want to do it.
And so Colin has had her hand up for a while.
Thank you so much. I see a need to make it a rather like stringent language on the policy, and I appreciate Martha assuring us that there's room for interpretation and flexibility. But what I'm really, and also I hear that some people might take advantage of the system if things are not restrictive on policy. However, first of all, I want to say that for the example of faculty keep like using the assistant to watch the children for the bathroom visit and etc. Even without the policy, that's definitely reportable, because if we all use practice and common sense, right, without the strict language about must and shall, still these kind of things, if that's reported, some kind of action will be taken. So I am less worried about that extreme example. First of all, I'm not really sure like how likely is it that a person actually will take advantage of the system in that degree. What I'm more concerned about is that even though there's an assurance for like flexibility and interpretation, but at the end of the day, what will happen is that we will all go by what is written. Because even if the HR director talks about flexibility and interpretation, that's just a verbal language. Nothing is written there. So at the end of the day, it will all go back to this very like extreme language and strong languages about all kinds of restriction that can be definitely used punitively. Things have happened a lot in a lot of places when there's very extreme and restrictive policy. And then, depending on the supervisor and depending on the cases, that has been used unfairly against the employees. So that is my concern. And I'm glad to know that I'm not the only one who share the same concern about this. Thank you.
I am just opening up the chat on the screen so that the people in the room can see what has been on the chat. And we cannot fully resolve this question in this meeting today, but, and Sherry, I see your hand. Let me just try and summarize. Part of the question seems to me to be, do we have a stricter policy on paper than is the protection needed that the policy on paper be stricter? Or do we need a looser policy on paper to avoid? So is the harm over restrictive implementation of a policy, or is the harm too lenient a policy that allows dangers to fall through the cracks?
Christy, I have a question because it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, who's ever asking Elizabeth. The idea behind the question is if it's looser, then it's the punitive, right? If it's looser, then there won't be this punitive reaction to it if for some reason I don't apply the policy. Am I correct?
Is that, you're asking me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just gonna fully disclose. I teach composition and literature. My business is words. This document is very hostile. Like the language is extremely rigid and hostile, which Ian also said. So if you are going to present a document in which the language is rigid and hostile, then people are going to interpret that as there is no flexibility here. And people who are particularly concerned about punishment, right, this being punitive, are not going to read this as having any flexibility. And I'm really concerned about that. Like, I don't have kids. This doesn't apply. I'm not bringing any random children to campus. I have no skin in this game. But like, when I read this, I agree that it reads as very unfriendly to children and to faculty, students, and staff who have children, and it's going to place them in a difficult position. I in no way want to see the situation that Loretta is talking about. At no time would it be appropriate for a supervisor to inappropriately use their position to ask someone to babysit their children. But I don't think that's what we're talking about, because I think that is clearly a reportable issue.
I have to jump in here. That is exactly what we're talking about. Because in many instances, like I said before at the meeting, we have to balance the two sides. I hear exactly what you're saying, but then we have the employee on the flip side that's also complaining about the fact that the supervisor is doing that, or someone that's maybe not the supervisor, but someone above them. They're being expected to care for the person's child while those have been legitimate complaints, and that's in addition to the traditional liability.
Right, but there are other ways to deal with that in language rhetorically as a bullet point, as a case study, there are other ways without the must, I mean, if you read this, not as somebody who worked on it, I'm talking about the people who didn't work on it, if this reads like that, I mean, that's how it reads, and it's very, it's kind of shocking in the first read.
And let me ask one other thing of Martha, well, and then I'll let you respond, and then we'll hear from Sherry. How does it compare to other CUNY college statements on policies on children?
Some campuses don't want children on campus. They prohibit children on their campuses. Others don't have any formalized guidelines, which is an issue. But I just want to also state that the words must and shall and words like that, they're also in your contracts. So when you read your contracts, those are guiding principles by which management needs to follow. And management could say that's restrictive for us. So for an example, or just to provide you with an analogy, in various contracts, there's a grace period by which employees are allowed to be late for work, 6 to 7 minutes. Albeit, some employees come in 15 minutes late. And that employee and their supervisor then go by the spirit of the law. And they say, that's fine, it's okay. But at the end of the day, the contract is very specific as to what a grace period is, right? So this is similar to that. And I just want you to use that or think about that analogy with regards to contract language, the law, and how this is written. It is not written to be, like I said, punitive in any way. It's not written to offend the employee. It's written as a guiding principle that we did not have prior.
Sherry.
So I mean, I have a lot of questions, but I wanted to weigh in on this issue that we're talking about right now, which is about the kind of orienting language and the way that it's written. But I also just have a clarifying question too. So first, I think that yeah, right. And I had 6 points when I was so, but I think the orienting language, but first of all, I totally agree. And this is one thing that that I brought up in the meeting last week with campus affairs. But honestly, we just didn't have enough time to talk about it to the degree at which I thought it was necessary. And I do have some really specific suggestions for how to change that orienting language in a way that I think might help to reduce the concern. So right now it says up at the top under employee guidelines, section 1.01. What is Christy's going to bring it up right now?
Oh, I have to go to this one. So what is the number again?
It's right up at the top, 1.01.
Starting at in general.
Yeah,
employees
in
are
general.
prohibited from bringing children.
Actually
on
above that
campus.
too. So actually stay right there, Christy, where you are.
Okay.
That's totally fine. So when it says section 1.01 employee guidelines, in general, employees are prohibited from bringing children on campus, including classrooms, labs. This whole sentence here, I think when you read it, it does sound really hostile, but I think that, we could replace that with something like, let's see.
Prohibited was the word.
CUNY has that word, they have that word, and then the campuses are
The word
responsible.
Prohibited.
Yeah, in
Prohibited
general.
was the word that we went back and forth of
Mhm.
why, maybe it was, maybe use, right.
Well, what they are allowed.
Similar to that.
Same thing.
The idea was,
Softening.
right, the idea was
And well, hold on, Evelyn, respond to the prohibited word, and then we'll hear from Sherry again.
Thank you.
So the idea was that although that did sound very strong, the word prohibited, and it made that sentence appear like must, right? Same concept. Because of the legal aspect of this document, it needed to be there. I think one of the words that we looked as an alternative was disallowed or something a little bit softer.
I have a
right?
Remember, I remember.
All right, back to Sherry.
Okay, so, as an ethicist, I don't have any problem with should and must. But what if we were to have something like, in general, LaGuardia Community College is committed to creating and maintaining a welcoming environment for all, including for children brought to campus by employees. Employees who bring children to campus are required to observe the following guidelines. Guidelines.
Can we do that? With the same exact guidelines, but setting it up instead of the initial statement, children are prohibited.
We can add some of that language to the second paragraph above section 1.01, but I would like 1.01 to stay as is for
Okay.
legal reasons.
And those of us who are not lawyers, I mean, Liz and I teach writing. We understand rhetorical modes. We understand their different expectations of language in different contexts, which can make it seem abrupt and abrasive when it's from outside our context. Though I recognize the value of what Sherry has to say. Sabine, let's hear from you, and then and Dan has his hand up again. And I am because of time again, we can't hash this out thoroughly here, but these are I'll try to summarize what I've heard and see if we can come up with some next steps for
I
us.
think.
Sabine, and then
your
Sherry.
proposed language, which is right in the beginning.
Yeah.
Of the policy, just to say that this is a university, we are here in education, children will somehow be social, you get what I mean?
Right.
But they're neat. If we just include that language, then it takes away from the actual policy.
From the potency of the policy,
Mhm.
or just from the legality.
That's a good, sorry.
Okay. For one case or another, I'm not saying words, but.
I don't know, based on exceptions, what handle legally can happen.
Creating days and family days when the
That's for another discussion. That's a good, yeah, for another discussion.
I just want to offer a different perspective, and it's actually what you just said. You know, I think this is like a hot topic, right? I've never seen like it's like the top 10 topics that I've heard in my time here. I lived for 7 years, that it's probably like the number one that so many people bounce back and forth, right? The next one, I believe, is for the adjunct subject. So, and I'm glad to hear that, because I'm hearing about, just the policy, and you're right, it's not very welcoming. It's, and I'm thinking to myself, but I understand the legal aspect of it, right? So I totally get that, but when you look at it, I'm like trying to see 45 minutes, so it's very limiting, so it's like, it's not very welcoming. I'm reading, comment from Dan there, and I think he's trying to touch on that, so I'm thinking to myself, okay, we need a policy, yes, but you see that exception right there? I'm sorry, the exception, these guidelines not prohibit children and family members from being in the workplace during university, college sponsored events, et cetera, et cetera. When does the college really do that? It's sort of like we say that it's, I'm like trying to feel like, okay, I'd love to bring my kids, to work again. I did this like 4 or 5 years ago between Christmas and New Year. We were here for like half the day. They had a great time. She'd like to come back again. So I'm like trying to think to myself, okay, let's follow this rule. But it doesn't seem like the college though has any other sort of ideas, because if you present this to everybody, like, and send an email about this, oh boy, will you get an explosion of, and if this is the only thing that they're seeing. So maybe you can couch it with like, okay, here's the policy, here's the official policy, but you know, somebody said, we're a community college, you know, like, are we really like saying that, sorry, kids are not welcome? You know, in our communities, can we
Hold on.
say that there
Evelyn,
some days
So
that,
that's
you know?
not what this policy
No, I know,
addresses.
I know.
I want to answer your
Yeah.
question, right? When we're talking about college events, we're talking about all college events, right? The theater's having an event, children are welcome.
Yeah.
The, 5K, the community's having an event, children are welcome. Student Life is having an event, they're welcome. If these events are for family, including children, then they are welcome and they fall under the visitors guidelines. They don't fall under this policy.
This is for work.
Right, this is
Yeah, employees at work, correct. And employees should not, bring their children to campus to supplement daycare costs. To, accommodate their own personal lives, because as they are here working, being paid to render services, that's their primary focus, not bringing their child, again, to supplement daycare or other issues in their personal life.
What?
First of all, I'm saying that.
Rochelle.
I was gonna say that, this is not, we're not gonna solve this. That tension needs to be there clearly. But I think the framework is going to be key here. This is about children and people are gonna respond emotionally. So we have to be aware of that. I think your idea is a great one because it kind of softens the guidelines. And for those of us who think that that's not necessary, clearly it is. We're still here on this because it is. And so when Martha says things like employees are being paid and faculty come in here all the time to do additional stuff, extra work. Some employees, I'm sure. And so that kind of language, this is the problem. People feel like you're punishing me. That's where the spirit element comes in. I hear what you're saying. We know the insurance stuff is there. These things are in there, but we need to frame it in a way that people actually hear what we're saying.
All right.
I think it's the communication of this policy.
Right, that's
That
what
should
is
have
so
that
key,
back.
and now Sherry has.
Thanks,
the
Lord.
is getting there.
We're gonna hear from Lance who gets the last word, and then I'm gonna try to wrap it up.
Okay.
I think, oh, and Rebecca, who also has the word after Liz. Nice.
I thought that in addition to what Rochelle said about it being an emotional topic, I think the key to this is really, Martha, what you said earlier. It's that we've never had this policy.
Correct.
So it feels, when the language, to people who are not lawyers, feels really punitive, that is coming on top of the situation where there hasn't been a policy, right? So like, I'm just gonna use faculty for a moment. A faculty member who decides to run in on a Saturday to pick up a set of essays that they forgot in their office, which is an extra thing, because they're not scheduled to teach on Saturday, as Rochelle just said, now feels like this is a punitive situation. They've got to fill out the form. They're in trouble for like trying to bring their kids into campus. And I just don't think that that's the message we need to send. We want to make sure that the college's, insurance, like, and all of those legal issues are handled. But there are ways to soften the framing, because we are also introducing a policy where nothing existed before, which means if this was like a revision of the current policy, we would have half of the upset, but it's coming out of a place where you did bring your kids, right? Other people have brought their kids. So I think we need to think very carefully about the rhetoric of framing what is going out, because people are upset because it feels like it's coming out of.
Two more comments.
Excuse me, point of order. Chair Bruns, there's a motion on the floor. It's in the chat.
Have you moved?
That's
Okay.
one.
I am moving.
Thank you for pointing that out. I was coming to Dan because he's reminded us he's had his hand up for some time. We can't see.
But there's a motion on the floor which needs a second, and then we need to discuss.
I'm going to read the motion for you if you can't read this. I move to create and this is from Dan, our new senator. I move to create an ad hoc committee to discuss the matter of children on campus. We need a second.
Second.
Second from Leslie.
all in favor?
Oh, hold
Aye.
on. So Daniel created the motion, so he gets the first right of refusal to speak on the motion.
Got it, okay. Go ahead, Dan.
I just think that there is probably a slightly more constructive way to discuss this than us all kind of going back and forth in two matters. This is quite an emotive issue. While I personally don't have skin in the game, I'm reminded that as a sociologist of the concept of community, and children are a vital part of any community. And I encourage the approval of this motion to create this committee.
Thank you, Dan. Any other discussion? Rochelle?
We already have a committee, right? Working on this, so.
The committee is the Committee on Campus Affairs.
But
which
they're
has-
there and we have a member.
Reading it.
You're reviewing it. Sabina, you're speaking to the motion or clarifying an issue?
Speaking to the motion.
Okay.
The same way Sherry was able to make some of those suggestions for those members of campus who would like to see softer language. Maybe send it to the Campus Affairs Committee as well as MARTA for it to be considered, and if there's a place for it to be included or to rework or tweak the policy, then that's a way that people feel like their ideas and their considerations are being heard, as well as we're then discussing it at the campus.
So you are opposed to the
I'm opposed to the
motion
motion.
because there is already a committee that's been working on it.
I think in the same way, I think that the committee should take it under the consideration, take notes, work it out in a very thorough way, and then bring it in the Senate. Because we are gonna go back and forth still.
Can we add to the committee? Can you add to?
The committee is open to guests. So, and if there are guests, I mean, and I'm not, I'm not speaking the motion, I'm chair of the Senate, but the committee is open to guests.
I'm opposed to the motion simply because members are welcome to join the committee or participate in the committee. We have done so. There were several members who were not, several guests who were not members who were more than welcome to speak. So I don't see the real need for a subcommittee.
Okay.
And Dan is more than welcome to join us.
Okay, so, Diane,
When is the committee being announced?
that is another question. Let's stick to this motion. How am I doing, Leslie? Was that good? So the motion on the floor is to create an ad hoc committee to address.
Chair,
this.
can I speak?
Yes, please do.
I'd just like to speak for the motion. I appreciate that we have a campus on committee, the Campus Affairs Committee who's put so much work into this. However, you can still see how divisive this is and how protective the committee is over certain language. So I think that an ad hoc committee just offering different perspectives might be a safe place to reach compromise. So I am for this motion.
All right. Any other discussion of the motion? So the motion proposes creating an ad hoc committee. It does not stipulate who would be on the committee. Though I already have some ideas, but those in favor think the committee can do some work. Those opposed think there's already a committee that's begun the work and should continue it. Anthony?
Just a question for clarification. So if we say no to the committee, are we actually referring it back to Campus Affairs? Or that would be a separate motion?
That'd be a
right?
separate motion.
Separate motion.
Separate motion. So, Suman.
Yeah, so I have a question as well. So, would having another ad hoc committee not delay the process of having the policy?
All of it would delay the process, I believe. Yes. And there is a question about an ad hoc committee, if it would have to go back through Campus Affairs to come back to Senate. So that's an open question. Liz?
Just a question. Can we have a clarification of what the current committee does?
The Campus
Sort of.
Affairs Committee? Campus Affairs Committee chairs, could you give us a quick summary of your responsibilities?
You deal with policies and procedures on campus issues like the cafeteria, the bookstore, the bike policy, things like that, all those kinds of policies, which is why it came to us.
Yeah.
Utilization.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor to create an ad hoc committee to review and amend the policy, or to create, well, yeah, to work with what, improve. I gotta look at the wording because it's not my wording. Create an ad hoc committee to discuss the matter of children on campus.
Before we go, can I say one quick thing?
Yes,
I think Martha has kind of declared that she's willing to add on and adjust based on what we on discussion today to the policy. I just want to make sure that everybody recognizes.
okay. So are you speaking for or against the motion?
I think I'm speaking against the motion.
Okay. So, all in favor of the motion, say aye or raise your hand.
Christy, I have a question.
Aye.
Hold on, Dan. Yes, Patricia?
Yeah, it's a question, it's not, I'm not sure it's for or against the motion, it's a question of process. It's like, why was it necessary for the campus affairs to vote on the policy before it came to Senate? Like, was that step necessary?
Yes, because motions by a committee do not require a second, so it's assumed that it's approved by the committee before presented to the Senate.
They voted also. And they voted. Okay, Lilith.
I'm sorry, I'm not really, I'm just one process question. Can the Senate refuse to accept this policy as it is and send it back?
But we
to
have
HR?
not, we do not have a motion on the, we're not gonna send it to HR.
Or
We're gonna
wherever it
send it to
goes.
Campus
Okay,
Affairs.
all right.
So the motion on the floor is, creating an ad hoc committee to discuss the matter of children on campus. All in favor? Oh, I'm gonna do it again. Sorry, Daniel, you have to say, all in favor, say aye or raise a hand.
Aye.
Two in the room and one on.
Aye.
Aye.
gotta
And
raise
two
my
on
hand.
Zoom.
I think you should hand raise first thing.
Yeah, we need to do hand raise, so.
Can I just get clarification before I vote here? I mean, what is this ad hoc doing? Is it really just gonna talk about this document? Or are we talking about the big thing that we're all talking about?
You can actually reject it, send it back to the, which is what my recommendation was.
We can't reject anything because there's no motion on the floor to vote. What we're doing right now is looking at an ad hoc committee and the wording is to discuss the matter of children on campus. So it's broader than this.
So raise your hand if you are in favor of this motion. I saw one,
I'd like to hear.
2, 3. There were 4, 5 online. And raise your hand if you're opposed to this motion. All right, the motion fails. Do we need a new motion? Loretta?
That depends. A new motion can be presented with a new course of action. But that's up to the body.
Loretta has raised her hand.
A motion that the,
I say I move.
I move, make a motion that the policy on children on campus return to, at the Campus Affairs Committee to work with, we're accepting recommendations for, language alteration as opposed to policy.
Would someone transcribe that motion? Is there someone that could write it out so that and maybe you online if you
Well,
can.
only if I get a second.
I second. What I want is for Jill, who's taking minutes.
I will.
Could someone please repeat that and I can write it down?
Liz is stepping to the laptop and will put it in the chat. So, and Loretta will ask you to say it again.
I think I got the first half.
To incorporate language, language revision.
Leslie said, I move to return the policy to the Campus Affairs Committee to incorporate feedback.
Good.
For language changes.
Yeah. Feedback for language changes.
Loretta, what did you said language and revision?
Language changes is fine.
For language changes. All right. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Lucy seconds.
I would be, I
All
would
you
agree
need
with
to
that
do
part.
is just say I second.
And I'm saying, I would add that.
I
No,
know
no, no. No, no, once it's seconded, it goes back to Loretta, who is the mover to speak for the motion.
Say, I second the motion.
I second.
Good, wait, second, got it.
I'm a beginner. here,
I've had
so
to
I'm
work hard to learn this.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Doing great, Christy.
To return the document.
Discussion. Now we
So-
need to, for or
It
against.
returns to Loretta. Loretta gets the right of first refusal.
Right,
I appreciate the conversation that we've had, and I understand that there's softer language. By the way, I said the same thing in my first meeting with Campus Affairs. I think there's a way that we're gonna present this a little bit differently, like with the preamble, and then here's the guidelines for students, and here's the guidelines for employees. So it is actually a clear division. Those are my suggestions, and I think that that's why I made this motion.
all right. The motion is the reason, the rationale for the motion, the argument for the motion is that you see ways to revise this that will make it better. Or clearer. All right. Bye, Maria. Other discussion.
Maybe you want to look back at Ariana's comments from the student perspective.
Not when she says she's stepping away, but. Yeah, so I know I saw something go past, so that I think we can no longer consider this comment in, there it is. More on faculty is the instance of child.
That's in the
Yes, this has
policy.
been addressed in the guidelines. I think the a faculty member can ask the child and student to leave the classroom if they become disruptive. And it is a good comment. Thank you for mentioning it, Yana, because I did miss that going by. So more discussion in favor or opposed to the motion on the floor, Rebecca and then Anthony.
I was just gonna say, yes, I think it needs to go back to the Campus Affairs Committee, work on language, incorporating all these views. And I do think that what our allowances for when people can't be on campus has to be expanded or clarified too, because I think that's also a problem. What are family, you were saying, what's a family event? What can someone come on campus for? If I can come on Saturday outside of my work hours and bring my child into my office, I want more clarification or more.
So that,
acknowledgement to that, then.
I'll see what I can do, but again, when we're writing legal documents, you can't put the kitchen sink in there. There are times where you have to be vague and you can't provide explicit descriptions for, again, various legal reasons. But again, once this goes back to the Committee on Campus Affairs and I'm provided with some other language, I'll see what I can do to incorporate as many suggestions as possible. Thank you, Sherry, for sending me your recommendations, and let's just take this back to the Committee on Campus Affairs. See,
so
We
Martha,
need to have a vote.
we do need
There's
to
a
have
motion on the floor. We need to vote.
Martha cannot even, it's not a
Right,
sitter,
it's a discussion,
but
right,
it's an
exactly.
So, is there any other discussion for or against the amendment, Anthony?
Just, my concern is. The point of this was by next month, we were gonna vote, like we were supposed to talk to our constituency. In between now and next meeting. The suggestion was already made, can, email suggestions to Evelyn, myself and Marta. So that we can start working on this, so that it's not just Campus Affairs that's drafting this, because we already did discuss it. Yes, we can obviously make some more changes, but a lot of these changes that are coming up, a lot of the language changes. Did not really come to surface in our meeting, so if you've got specific language changes. Send them to us now, in between now and next month,
So
talk to
we're
your
gonna
constituencies and get them to us.
We're gonna take Anthony's comment as in favor of the motion. Is that to send it back to Campus Affairs, because we haven't voted on that motion yet. We're still under consideration for it. And Charis.
Kind of question. So, if this goes back to, I'm in favor of the motion, but is there a particular deadline that recommendations need to be sent to you all?
Let's vote on the motion first and then ask.
Yeah, if the chair can decide that if the motion passes.
Okay.
So the motion is to send the policy back to Campus Affairs for incorporation of the language based on the feedback received in the Senate meeting. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Aye. I see 2, 3 hands. All opposed to the motion, sending it back to campus affairs. Daniel and Patricia. I don't know if Patricia's hand is up from before. Patricia, are you voting against the motion? Maybe, I don't know. All right, well, the motion carries. So we are sending the policy back to campus affairs. Today is Wednesday, January 11th. I would say send your feedback or thoughts to Evelyn and Anthony, the co-chairs of the committee on campus. I'm sorry.
Other way around. It's okay.
Both of you, send your feedback. I'm gonna ask again, because this is the responsibility of the committee, not primarily of HR. I would ask them to send the feedback they received to Marta and then to work on any revisions to the policy. Is a week, I think a week is a good.
I was recommending the 20th, because
20th.
Monday's a holiday. Just to give everyone an opportunity to noodle on this. Sherry, again, has forwarded me her recommendations. And then Evelyn and you know, we'll all sort of get them back by the 20th. I want to have updates literally by that Monday, the next Monday. So in preparation of the February 8th meeting, okay?
Great. So by January 20th.
So what I would like to, we can schedule another meeting between now and there and ask anyone who wants to be a part of it, even before the recommendations are sent for revision to HR, right? Like, we can discuss it further in terms of language and anything else prior to that. So if anyone, I would say 18, 19.
Can you email us the date when we get
Yeah,
it?
we will. We will.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So email that to Senate.
It's so important that people who may not have been able to attend the meeting that we just had now have the opportunity to attend. the
Okay,
meeting.
sounds good. Sounds good. Any other questions about this?
Yeah.
Daniel, oh, Patricia, did you found your hand up? Let Patricia first and then Daniel.
Okay, I have a quick question. As Trustee, you mentioned, it seems to me that the weight of what Martha is saying is much more than the weight of the entire committee here. Is this campus affairs or is this HR who's in charge of that policy? And Martha, you know, with all due respect to your work and what you do, is Martha an add-on to the committee or is Martha in charge of the policy? And that to me is a big distinction here.
I'll answer that.
Evelyn
question.
is gonna answer that.
So no, the committee, Martha presented and we discussed it in much great detail. This is why I'm suggesting that we have another discussion. We're very clear that it's this committee who either approves and sends it to Senate, and that this is the Senate and then sent to HR. What Martha is saying is that in order for her to revise it, she would need to have those comments by a certain time, because she wants to make sure that she has the revision by the next Senate committee. So just to clarify.
Yeah, but again, so the revisions are done by Martha, not by the committee. That's exactly my point.
So Patricia, Patricia, I'll answer your question. I am the steward administrator of the policy on behalf of the college and on behalf of the president. So as the administrator of the policy, I presented it to the respective committees for review, which then has to go to the Senate for vote and approval. Okay, I hope that surmises the answer for everybody.
That is going to be how it stands.
Thank you.
Okay.
Revisions there.
I just have a dates question.
Dan, did you have a comment?
I did. Thank you, Christy. I just wanted to echo what Patricia's comments and concerns. And I also wanted to go on record as saying that I would appreciate if students who are going to be the ones equally impacted by this policy are given an opportunity, or as the case may be, another opportunity to make sure that their constituency is also given an opportunity.
And there's been
to-
quite a bit of effort already to get student feedback led by Cohen, who is the head of the Student Parent Initiative. So.
Well, given that this is my first meeting, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, no, good suggestion, an important one, and Cohen has worked on that already. Yeah, so I'm gonna, Rebecca.
I do have a question about dates and timing for feedback. Next week is all of our departmental meetings. So as far as faculty sharing this and getting feedback, we would all have those meetings on Wednesday. And
We do not have a draft policy yet ready to share with constituents. That's my sense. Is that correct?
Yes.
so we don't want to take it. That's my question. Are we taking it to constituents now, or this is a later thing and we're just taking it to the
So
committee?
we have sent it back to the Committee on Campus Affairs. You can update your constituents that the Senate has returned the draft policy to the Committee on Campus Affairs for further revision.
So how would our constituents give feedback before the February 8th vote? of
We
the
are not
Senate?
going to necessarily vote on this at the February 8th
Okay,
meeting.
that's just a question, because if we
That-
wanted our constituents feedback before that vote, that's my
Yeah.
question.
So that's my sense.
My question.
Scroll down, you can see the messages in chat.
Yeah, so, and Marta did, the Marta on Zoom did put a link and an excerpt from the BMCC Children on Campus Policy. And there's other messages too, so I'll leave that here. All right. So instruction, just a reminder of the instruction. So you may tell your constituents that the policy proposal needs further revision before it's shared with the campus community. Is that fair? If you want to share this version with the campus community, that's fine. You certainly may, and you can get feedback, but say that the feedback received from the Senate is to find a way to make the campus sound more welcoming. I mean, that's a big part of the feedback and less punitive. So, okay.
I have a hard stop, so I need to leave.
Yes, thank you,
Thank
Martha.
everyone for allowing me
And
to
thank-
present this today.
Thank you for all of your work on this.
Okay.
There, obviously, because it's 4 o'clock and we're only on the beginning of. I knew that would be hard. That was a little harder than I expected. Yeah, so, but thank you all for, I mean, this is what we're here for. So there's I'm gonna propose, moving a few things that aren't essential. But there are some that are essential. One, I'm gonna.
Robert's watching you, Chair.
I am, all right. The next item on the agenda is to create an ad hoc committee, the Senate Review and Assessment Committee, that will continue some of the work from the Governance Plan Revision Committee. The Governance Plan Revision Committee ad hoc committee is done with its work. The committee is dissolved. We have been tasked by the Middle States Accreditation Review with developing more formal assessment of Senate. And so we want to create a committee that will take on that responsibility and continue more periodic reviews of the governance plan and things like that. So do I have a motion to create an ad hoc committee called the Senate Review and Assessment Committee? Charis, I see a motion. You move to create a Senate Review and Assessment Committee. Loretta, second. All in favor? Aye. I saw that hand. Do you want to say something, Leslie? You're voting. Voting, got it. Bye, Joseph. Thank you for being here. No problem. No problem. Yeah, thanks for being here. So the committee is created, and as chair of the Senate, I am able to promote or to name a chair, and I am going to name Leslie Skamaka as the inaugural chair of this committee to continue the work she's begun with the governance plan. If you are interested in joining the committee, let me know or let Leslie know. The committee, again, the focus is review and assessment of Senate. We have 3 student senators we've not heard from. We need to recall them. The notification has been sent to them by email and mail. We heard from one who said, I'm too busy. And two others I didn't hear from at all. So their names are Jennifer Moon, Bhupendra Pariyar, and Alexandra Portillo Najera. And so I need a motion to recall the senators, Anthony.
Move to recall those three
Those
senators.
three-
Those three
those
names.
three senators. Second is, Margaret. Margaret was second, Anthony was first. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, those senators are, not yet, not yet. There's a couple others that aren't showing up also, but we're gonna get to them at a later meeting. So, I believe that Ariana, have you ever been able to return to the meeting? I don't think so. So we are going to delay an additional student member for the Committee on Committees. My chair's report is next as quickly as I can. I meant to say at the beginning of the meeting and forgot, I did take a COVID test today. I know COVID is still with us. I'm not wearing a mask. I tested negative. So just so you know, when I come here and stand in front of you all, I'm going to take responsibility for not infecting anyone with COVID.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I always check on Senate days. This is important. Before Deborah Engel's retirement, she informed me that the curriculum committee needs a Senate meeting on March 29th. There was a late calendar coming, I think, from the Board of Trustees. I'm not quite sure. That means that there is curriculum that needs to come to Senate that doesn't work with our March 8th meeting. So we are going to hold a meeting with the Senate on March 29th. I have not yet updated the Senate calendar. I'd like you all to write it down. March 29th, and Nada, before she retired, already reserved E500 for us. In fact, I believe that the rest of our Senate meetings this year will be in E500, the bigger room. So we are meeting on March 29th. We may cancel the March 8th meeting, right? There's a long gap there. There was a long gap anyway, one way or another. But I would like to reserve the right to make the decision on March 8th until we're planning our February meeting. And as it seems now, we may have the children on campus policy to consider. So if we can skip the March 8th meeting, it'd be nice. But if there is pressing business that we need to attend to, we'll keep that meeting. So that meeting is now tentative. You'll hear at the February meeting if we are meeting on March 8th. But if you would all plan to meet, plan for us to meet on March 29th, we are needed for our role in improving curriculum. Last, very briefly, there was an emergency management training on December 12th. All of the members of the cabinet met, including a bunch of people from across the college. I just want to inform you that this happened. It was the environmental and health and safety person from CUNY Central. Co-presenter was the head of environmental and health and safety from CUNY Law. And it was a series of scenarios, horrifying scenarios of live shooter on campus, you know, what we do. I'm saying this, I sat through this and we all went through the process of thinking, what would we do? Now, there are emergency protocols in place, but I want you to know how important in any situation like that, all of the members of the college community are. So if you see or hear, as you see or hear of opportunities for training or for volunteering, for emergency management or emergency preparedness, I urge you to take advantage of those opportunities because it's important if there is ever a scenario like that. The last thing I'll mention as briefly as I can, I came back in my work as a scholar, I came back this weekend from the Modern Language Association convention. All the language and literature professors gathered in San Francisco. I got to be there. I organized a session and presented on faculty governance and governance in colleges. Went to a lot of other sessions on this, and I want to just say to you briefly, we are lucky at LaGuardia. We are lucky that we have a strong union. We are lucky that we have a governance plan that gives us power in the system of the college. And we are lucky that right now we have an administration receptive to the role of governance. Because those three factors together, none of which are in effect at lots of campuses around the country, those give us an advantage. So I want to thank you for stepping up and filling the gap that would otherwise be filled by the administration. We have this opportunity and we're taking it. So that was my takeaway from hearing from a bunch of other colleagues at other campuses. So the next on the agenda is, oh, Ariana's back. Ariana, we are going to, I would like to postpone the vote on a committee on the committee on committees student member, because I'd like to get to the hopefully the two, yeah, we're okay, I think, the two items from the academic standing committee that Lila is here for. What? We don't, we do it really quick? All right. We needed one more student member on the committee on committees. Ariana, are you here?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Hello. Would you like to nominate yourself to be the second student member on the committee on committees?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Ariana is nominated to be the second student member on the committee on committees. All in favor? Yeah, great.
Thank you.
I'm done. Thank you, Anthony. Good job. Got that taken care of. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah, I am.
I
I have the PowerPoint for the policy, for the exemption credit, because that's pretty straightforward.
Okay, talk about the first policy and I'll pull up the.
Do I have to stand somewhere?
Yeah, just stand, it doesn't matter. Just.
The room is emptying.
The room is empty.
I like the large audience.
Really, that's perfect.
Is it good? Okay, you're not away here?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I don't know.
That I'm excited about.
Yeah. And I am running your PowerPoint. How's that?
All right, so let's start this in a minute. I want to talk about exemption. This is not, so the exemption, hi, everyone, hello. Alex is there, long time member and ex-chair of the committee. So I'm here on behalf of the Academic Standing Committee. Finally, we have some important policy revisions to present to you, and hopefully we'll get your approval and or feedback as well on these. So the first policy that we revised is the exemption credit policy. This is fairly straightforward, a fairly straightforward revision. The need came from Dean Dion Miller, who drew attention to an issue that has been, going on with this policy, specifically related to the fact that the current policy language does not allow. There's a note at the end which says that exemption credits are only awarded to degree students. So non-degree students are currently not allowed to take or to benefit from this exemption credit policy. And so it turns out that at least we know of the Modern Languages Department as one example where students have been granted who are non-degree students, and these students are the early college students. So early college students, this is something we didn't know, but now we do. Early college students, actually, those high school students who show up in your classes, they are actually not matriculated as credit students until they earn the full 60 credits that they need in order to graduate, at which point they get, I guess, quickly enrolled, and then they graduate, right? And they get the degree. So technically, this is why you can't see their degree audit and all of that. Degree works. They're technically not matriculated. So no, they're not degree students technically, but in fact they are. So these students have regularly been benefiting from the exemption credit policy because it makes sense. It is usually related to language acquisition and what level of language fluency they have. So they might get credit for Spanish 1 because they test into Spanish 2 and so on. Probably I can get some clarification on that, but that's what has been happening. So technically, then the Modern Languages Association has been in violation of this policy, but in many ways, this note there did not seem to make a lot of sense for us, and we didn't see any danger in removing the notes. So the only revision that is happening or that we are recommending here is the policy stays as it is. It limits the number of credits that can be exempted, but it would take away this last note whereby the credit is only awarded to degree students, so early college, high school students could also benefit from it.
And it is behind your head.
Is it only for those non-degree students who are in the early college program?
We did not specifically state that fact, but according to Dean Miller, they are technically the only non-matriculated students who have been granted this. So we could not think of we were trying to think about situations in which practically what we were trying to think about is why is this note there, right? We did think about that. And we discussed in detail what could be a scenario in which somebody who is not a degree student would take advantage of that. But we really didn't see any specific situation where this would be dangerous or that it would be excessive, specifically because the exemption credits are limited to, I believe, 6 credits.
You
Yes.
have people who are trying to amass college credits to qualify for certain promotional exams that do not require a degree, but they require college credits. They would fit into this, especially if they had language abilities and are doing them. People who are trying to make the police academy, the fire academy, so we get these inquiries.
Okay,
So
that was the reason why.
So those are people who I've spoken with within the last 3 months.
Okay.
So I'm not saying if I thought about it, I might go back to my history. So what I'm saying is, are we rewriting the policy that we're going to specify early college students? Or are we going to rewrite the policy for just non-degree students? And if we are, I just want to know so that my office is informing people appropriately.
That's a good question. We did not know about that this situation would be so significant, right? That there would be, I think, first of all, I can take this back to Dean Miller and see if we want to specify that. Secondly, we could also think about, in what way would this harm, right, LaGuardia, if we did award it to any non-matriculated student. So we could have that discussion. I could, that's fairly easy, quick clarification. So I could take that back and then clarify it and then make a decision and then bring it back again. That's totally fine if that's what people want. Yeah, that works.
So, we need a motion for that. We need a motion for all of this. So the motion is Loretta. Leslie's not saying anything and I can't see her.
I am. What do you want? I mean, if the committee is just making a presentation, then, or are we asking for a vote?
I was asking for an approval, but it seems like
There's one more question that needs to be clarified before this is ready to come for a vote.
Okay, so if Lila proposes a motion to approve, we can table the motion until next meeting.
Okay.
Well, I guess I propose a motion to.
Can a non-senator make a motion?
Well, she's our committee chair.
She's our committee chair. She can make a motion.
Right, so she would be representing the committee making this motion.
Okay.
That's why it wouldn't need a second if it came from the committee chair.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve this
Policy,
change.
we had a second. Rochelle seconded. That's for the recording for Jill for the minutes. And we are going to table the motion. Is that right? And I can do that?
You need a motion to table.
Oh.
Shall I request to table?
Let's make a motion to table.
Okay, I'll make a request to table this. Okay, until the next meeting.
To table this until next second.
So be very careful if you table it to the next meeting, it has to happen because now it's a special
All right,
order.
not until the next meeting. Just table it. Just table it. Why don't?
Did you?
Table it.
Let's just table it.
We'll table it. Second to the motion. Jeannie seconded the motion. All in favor? So this is tabled for a future date.
Okay.
Okay. second presentation.
Second one, I thought this was the easy one. Great, I'm doing great here, all right.
Hold on, here we go.
The attendance policy.
Okay. I think we're ready.
All right, you can,
Oh, advance.
so, the Academic Standing Policy, Committee has, reviewed the current, attendance policy. And hopefully I will lay out the rationale why we are recommending revising, this, policy. This is the current language of the policy. Hopefully you're all familiar with that. The highlights or bold is from me. These are the areas that we identified as, being, problematic besides the overall, rationale. And these are the areas that we specifically, targeted, to, address. But of course, we revised, more, globally the policy. So, first I want to talk about why, this came about. So you can go to the next, slide. So the context and the considerations. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, but the attendance policy has caused much confusion throughout the years, year after year. Alex can attest to that at our meeting for new faculty. Attendees ask again and again why LaGuardia has an attendance policy when CUNY is a non-attendance staying policy. Why is it that from the first day of classes, we punish students for not being there, even though they are potentially not enrolled? What does the 15% exactly mean? How does it break down when it comes to hours and so on? So there has been a lot of back and forth. We try to clarify, we create videos, we answer these questions as best as we can, but clearly the attendance policy has had a fairly contentious history at LaGuardia. Some people feel very strongly about us being, needing to be stricter, while other people are very much opposed to it and consider this as treating students as, children practically, not as adults who can take responsibility. So that was the first. So this is not something that is completely out of the blue. That being said, there are some more immediate concerns as well. So one item or one part of the attendance policy that we have identified for before, this whole web attendance issue, but is the fact that our attendance policy only mentions the word attendance. And we know that in the COVID era with the large variety of modalities that we teach, and this has been also a source of confusion. How do we measure attendance? What does attendance mean? Well, it turns out that it is not uncommon. In fact, it is the common practice for attendance policies to include participation as well as attendance, or only participation, right? So that in that way, the attendance is not anymore about physically being present in the class, which we all know is not what we are looking for in terms of pedagogical, desire that the student is sitting there, and physically present. We want students to participate, to actually be present in the class. So that was another concern that we had. Now, on top of that, we have, it has been brought to our attention together with, web attendance being discontinued, and that speaks to the last point as well. It looks like higher administration decided that because of financial considerations, as well as a low compliance rate, which was surprising to many of you as well, the college will no longer support web attendance. I do not want to discuss the software. It's not my role. Please look into it if you don't know what it is. It's not a CUNY software. It's an in-house software that costs a ton of money to maintain. No other college uses web attendance. So, I just want to let you know, this is a completely local LaGuardia software that was developed in-house, since the attendance policy as it stands now is a requirement for faculty, right?
fact, it says explicitly in the attendance policy, faculty are required to take attendance, right? And so the college provided a software platform for that, but this will no longer be used after the spring. And as part of the argument the administration is presenting, a shocking data that we found out on the committee, and hopefully this is now available to everyone. Even pre-pandemic, the high number of compliance or usage of attendance policy was 70, lower than 70%. We don't know where the other 30% of faculty are and how they demonstrate that they are taking attendance, because this would be the official, what we call the official attendance taking policy. Right now, we are hovering around 50%, which is half of faculty. It does vary. You can look at your own department. It does vary by department. But this is a situation. So what does that mean for us as the Academic Standing Committee? Well, this for us means that around 50% of faculty right now, officially, as we know, are not in compliance with this policy, right? Yes.
Just that, what, the student services at 90%, what are they taking attendance?
Maybe advising, or maybe people teach there, I don't know.
First year seminar? No.
No, because first year seminar would be under whatever.
I don't know.
Freshman seminar is probably like a college, every workshop and then advisory hours.
Okay.
I didn't ask that question. Good.
Just curious.
Yeah.
And we actually have 5 minutes left in our schedule.
Okay.
But
I am moving
we're
forward.
gonna-
So also as part of our research, I'll talk about it. We have established, we looked at every CUNY college and gathered information about their attendance function, every single CUNY college. And I am confident to tell you that LaGuardia has the most punitive attendance policy across CUNY as it stands now. I have a list that is here, and I don't know if it was shared with you, the document, but it says and outlines every attendance policy. So that was the third, another consideration. We really want to be more in line with attendance policies across CUNY. All right, now you can move on. All right, so what did we do? What was the process? The committee, we had an initial discussion in November. We spent the whole meeting on discussing this policy, thinking about concerns. The provost and the associate dean were both there. They presented their point of view on this. And so we decided that we needed to follow up on the concerns and figure out exactly where we are taking this and what the revision would look like. There were 3 major follow-ups that we created. First of all, I know that this is a concern that again comes up, and it turns out to be completely unfunded financial aid. I followed up with the VP for Student Enrollment, Gail Box-Jarrett, about financial aid and how web attendance is connected to financial aid. Web attendance is in no way connected to financial aid. It is the VOE that is connected to financial aid. Financial aid officers never use web attendance. They never ask for attendance records from students, which makes sense because several CUNY colleges do not have attendance policy. They do not have any official record to go by, and the students have financial aid there. So there had to be a different way. So there is no financial aid implication for changing the policy. Faculty feedback, we wanted, yes.
Was Gail talking about web attendance having no financial aid, or the staff is taking any attendance?
No, VOE is the only thing they use.
I'm verified. The VOE, I'm sorry, right.
The VOE is the very beginning of the semester.
Say, they came out, if you never took attendance.
Well, nobody says you should never take attendance. VOE is the only thing we have to fill out, and it's the only official CUNY record of attendance. Yes.
I want to.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So I totally agree that there are expenses for the web attendance, and that's fine. But in other colleges, it's not that they don't take attendance and.
No.
Wait to get to the, what's the revised?
So I'm gonna finish. I want to say it right now. I think this is a major concern. No one says here that there's no attendance policy and that we will just stop taking attendance.
No one advocates that, no one says that, it is not the reality. And I would like you to communicate that to your constituents. I think that's a major misunderstanding. Yes. I'm gonna
make
keep,
this really
so we
short.
did, so the reason why you do not have to take this back to your constituents, because we already did. We have a representative from each department, and the representatives have taken it back to their departments. If you haven't heard from your ASC, exactly, you should have all talked.
The attendance.
Mhm.
Everyone in the department voted that the attendance should be taken.
And
Attendance
They-
taken.
all right,
Wait till
let's-
the end of the policy. Wait till you,
Let's
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Alright, so then I also researched attendance policies across CUNY, and then during the December meeting, we have convened and taken all these considerations, feedback, and revised the policy. So,
Can
yes.
we skip this slide?
You can skip it, although it is the goals we had.
We can attach this to the minutes. There's also a document with most of this that you
Yes.
already received by email.
Yes, if you have read that document, this is mostly in that document. So these were the goals to include the participation, to make the language student facing, because this is about students and not about faculty. To ensure that 100% of faculty are in compliance with this policy, because there's no point in having a policy and requiring something that faculty do not adhere to. Give more flexibility to departments to develop the attendance policy as they see fit. Very importantly, we do not want to leave this up to individual instructors. We discussed this, we realized that instructors can take the freedom into extreme one way or another way. So you will see that the attendance policy does not leave it up to individual instructors what the attendance policy is. And then finally, to bring the attendance policy more in line with CUNY. So we looked at CUNY models, other CUNY models. So this is the new policy that we are proposing. It does not do away with the fact that faculty will, take attendance. Class attendance and participation play a crucial role in the learning process. So you can see participation there and directly impact students' overall academic achievement. Therefore, students are expected to attend and participate in all class sessions, regardless of modality, student-facing language. Departments or degree programs shall establish specific attendance requirements, and those will appear on the course syllabus. If the department or the degree program decides that they require faculty, and they want to put it that way, they require faculty to take attendance, and they will monitor that, they can continue doing that. Nobody's taking that right away. What we want is we want programs and departments to have the flexibility, and now programs and departments will be responsible for to make sure that if that's a requirement, that it is being followed, not the college, right? As a whole. So again, students must review individual course requirements in order to understand the effect their absences may have on the grade in the course. Again, student-facing language, right? So what we are hoping will happen is that it will happen. Programs / departments will develop, people will come together, decide what they want, and that will be a uniform program / department-based policy that will show up on everyone's syllabus. It will be students' responsibility to follow that. If your department program decides they want to keep the policy as it is now, that's what they're gonna do, right? It can be exactly the same policy as it is now, 15% and everything, yes.
As long as the entire college is required to complete the verification of attendance.
Verification of enrollment.
The verification of enrollment. I don't see why, I like this, by the way. It's achieved for but I was just wondering.
We need a motion, I think.
To discuss?
For us to know what we're discussing.
Okay.
Unless you have clarifying questions, which I will allow.
Yeah, it wasn't a clarifying question. I just didn't understand why we couldn't have a statement in there where the college, something like where we say we expect students to attend and participate. We should have, I think,
an expectation for the entire college. I know you have it for the departments, but as long as verification of enrollment happens across the board. I feel
The
like we should
verification
have-
enrollment is not related to this.
No.
That is totally, two
No.
totally separate things. This is
I'm
not related to
concerned
verification of
mostly for
enrollment.
I'm concerned mostly for the major dates, especially the exams and these kind of things, because
It's department. But
Yeah, it's
let's,
department.
Anthony and then Loretta, and are these questions or?
Any question?
Yeah, questions. Anthony?
A question, could you address some of the concerns that have been brought up over the years, you know, financially and all that? Another question that's always come up over the years was the legality, like, you know, if we ever get called to report or something, a student was here on that day. Was
Yeah.
that addressed? Because that's always been drummed into our.
Anecdotally, that question is always raised hypothetical. We do not know of many instances when that happened, but most importantly, this is the problem. The web attendance is not an official record, legally speaking. The web attendance can be modified. Right?
Yeah.
Going back and modify, no lawyer in their right mind is going to allow the web attendance to go in as evidence. It is not an official record in the court, no.
Students benefit, it will be.
Loretta, and then, and we, because of the time,
Yeah.
we are not gonna be able to thoroughly discuss this.
Mm-hmm.
If there are pressing questions, go ahead, Loretta, and then, and Suraj, and then Margaret.
My concern is, how is, if students need access to the attendance for academic appeals, for legal, for doing legal, that they were on campus, or that they weren't on campus. So how is students going to be accessing it? Because I'll tell you right now, because of that 50% of we could actually say, I'm so sorry, there's no record that supports your student, your appeal. So how are we going to fix that?
Academic appeals, yeah, academic appeals has come up. Vera was at the meeting. It was probably, the most discussed issue. I disagree with the legal. I said, my God, this is not an official legal record. What it turned out to be the case, and Vera admitted to this, is that even with the policy as it stands and web attendance in place, there's constant inconsistency, constant issues of faculty
My
not.
question is, how is this new policy
It's not
going to address, how does a student obtain the attendance record if they need it for whatever their purpose is?
They would have to
Because it
obtain.
used to go to
Yeah.
the registrars through web attendance. So is part of this policy that each academic department is responsible for maintaining the file of the attendance records for the classes that are run every semester?
It stipulates that each department can decide how they want to handle it. Attendance taking across CUNY varies greatly. There's appeals committees in every single college. There are ways in which students get access to their attendance records in colleges where there is no attendance policy per se in place. Academic appeals uses other ways. The attendance policy is just one piece of the evidence that academic appeals uses that was clarified to us. And as I said before, it seems to be quite often unavailable. And also, even though we have the policy, and also incorrect quite a few times. So I don't see that majorly impacting. Also, it was related mostly to the WNs. And the exactly. So the so the WN is not being punitive. Actually, there's a huge drop in appeals related to that. So this is not going to be a major
I'm not asking,
issue.
I'm not
Yeah.
asking as a detriment to your policy.
Mhm.
I'm asking, does this policy lay out that there's a central depository for attendance records? If you're saying no, then I think that that's something missing in the policy. But
Yes,
that's all my
I see. So we are, no, there isn't. And the reason why there isn't, because right now we have one and it's still not happening. So what we have right now is we have this requirement and 50% of the college seems to disregard it and not be in compliance. And there is no way, even though we have the policy, there's no way for the college to enforce it in any way. It has not been enforced
So
because we
I-
don't have 100% there.
We have lost, those of you remote don't know how many people we've lost from the room. Some who are senators, but some who are senators. I think we should table this to. Unless somebody thinks we can vote. So, Alex, Sarah, you wanted to say something also?
Yeah, just because I'm on the committee too, and I- Lila's doing an amazing job, but at the bottom of this is that web attendance is going away and there's nothing we can do about it.
college will no
And I
longer
think
make
to answers, your question is each department should go back to the old school way of taking attendance and then giving that attendance to the secretary, the administrator in each department. So things will need to be worked out like that, but web attendance is gone because it's a financial issue.
But that's at the discretion of the department, right?
Right.
Every department that operates different.
Yes.
Just have his hand up.
Just one clarification on. Right?
Mhm.
You said departments for degree programs shall establish specific standards. Degree programs, are those majors?
So a department can have can have several programs hosted in the department. And so different programs sometimes, require different attendance. So for instance, a program that has a lab component to it, right? That the attendance policy there will be very different. They are very strict about the lab versus a program, let's say, I don't know, physics or whatever. I don't know. I don't want to make this up, right? Where there is no lab, right? So then so it could be the department or individual programs if they feel that they need their own dependent, attendance policy, either because they want it to be stricter or because they want it to be more flexible, whatever it is.
Right, so it's not the major then, because a major, you have a lot of different.
A major is a degree program.
Program, yeah.
It is a degree program, but
Right.
under the auspices
So,
of the
so if
department,
you have a business major, for example,
that's a
and
department.
students are required to take English, what's the attendance policy for?
It is the English. It's not, so it's for the courses in the major. So the writing program will have its own, that's a program. Maybe that's why it's not really the same as the major, because we have a writing program, right? The composition program. The writing program will have its own attendance policy.
Right, but again, I think the major is that you have a lot of different courses that
Mhm.
make up that major
Mhm.
that belong to other departments. So it's not.
Yes, it's not the major, it's the program.
That's setting the attendance policy.
It's the program.
Departments.
Mhm.
The department. It's the
Yes, it's not the
department.
major, it's the programs, yes.
Is,
Okay. I super appreciate your process. I appreciate the research. It was very clear that this was incredibly well thought out. So thank you to the committee. I really appreciate that. I have a philosophical question that you're not gonna love, but I am seeing repeatedly at the college that we are deferring to departments. And I have for policies, and I have concerns about that when we are a college. You're not getting a degree from the department, you're getting a degree from the college. So I just wonder how much letting every department set their own policy, sends a message to the students that they're not at a college that has a united policy. And B, is gonna set up a lot of fragmentation, because for example, the writing program is gonna have a pretty strict attendance policy. Because we think that's what's necessary to communicate that students can be successful. So now we're setting up a situation where a student who comes in and is in ENA and is told in ENA, yeah, I don't know what our eventual policy will be, but like you can only miss, 4 classes, but then they go to some other class and there's no attendance policy. And I'm concerned about the confusion of that. So I'm sure you guys talked about that. Yes, we did talk about that, yes. So very quick, I know we have to close, so I'll probably come back and, address
I'm
that
so
question.
sorry.
We contextualize this within the framework of other attendance policies in CUNY, right? This was related to that. So the most attendance policies, and again, you can look and check this on the list. In CUNY, the colleges that do have attendance policy in CUNY, and by the way, real quick, 6 colleges do not have any sort of attendance policy in the books whatsoever out of the 18. 4 is completely non-punitive. There is nothing punitive in the language that would say students' grade would be affected by their attendance. 4 other, and this is where it comes in, leave it up to the instructor. It is up to the instructor to decide what the attendance policy is, and it shows up on the syllabus. There are only 3 colleges that are punitive in a similar way as LaGuardia, none of them as punitive as LaGuardia in terms of clearly establishing that there will be an effect on the grade, 15%, all of that. So we were trying to balance between having a really rigid college-wide policy and leaving it completely to the instructor, so that it is not at the mercy of the instructor. Some instructors might abuse the policy then and create an attendance policy that is impossible, right? While others would be like, it doesn't matter. So this is how we landed on the department. So there has to be a consensus, right? That's how we landed on that.
So we are tabling this discussion with appreciation and apologies to Lily for bringing it.
Okay.
Know that it will.
I'll come back, no problem.
Oh, which is good.
So what do I need to do before?
I don't think she needs to do anything.
No, I don't. Do I need, do you want me to go for it, this legal thing?
No.
No.
Just come back.
Just come back.
Yeah. Yes. Committee announcement that is urgent. So there's been a committee report, in the chat. If you can see on the screen, if I help it show, any other committee reports, email them to me. I'll make sure they get into the minutes. If there's something urgent that needs to happen, I will send it out, send it by email so you're informed. Otherwise, watch for those minutes at the next meeting, where all of this, and I apologize again for the packing these minutes. Obviously, we're gonna learn about new business at our next meeting. Patricia's got her hand up. Patricia, you're muted.
I just want to say a quick thing is that there's a 2% cut on budget coming now, just in case. Most of the cuts will be out of the adjunct money and the OTPS. So it's $1 million something, almost $2 million that have to be cut from the budget right now in the spring.
CUNY Central is making a 2% budget cut to all CUNY colleges. And so Patricia's been in interaction with the budget committee. Thank you for saying that. It does matter to say that. And we need a motion to adjourn. Is everybody still? Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Thank you, everybody. Thank you, you at home, for bearing with all that. I do.
Because I just need you for like 10 minutes.